Yes, I'm Alan Teal. I'll be presenting today on the two witnesses of the book of Revelation. It's an interpretive exegesis of Revelation 11:3 through 13. It's a considerable amount of material to be condensed into 5 slides, so we'll be moving through it pretty quickly and really not plumb very deeply as much as I'm going to try to. The book of Revelation, chapter 11, verses 3 through 13, describe the two witnesses who prophesy for 3.5 years. Uh, the witnesses can call fire down on their enemies and withhold rain from the earth. These two things feed in later when trying to identify the two witnesses. And the witnesses will be known worldwide. The Bible is very clear on saying the whole world will follow after them. This is an interesting thing because although this prophecy's been written for 2,000 years, the capability to do this actually has only been around for a very short time in comparison. So, for that reason, a lot of people used to think that this was not actually the case. So, the question comes in then, who are the two witnesses? The two witnesses appear with no special announcement. Uh, Chapter 11 opens with John being given a measuring stick to measure out the temple, and which he does. And there's a couple of small pronouncements made at that point. And then immediately verse 3 pops up, and here are these two witnesses. So we don't really see them coming, and suddenly they're there. They're there for a very short time, 11 verses, and then they're gone. The witnesses are described as two olive trees and two candlesticks in the commentary, which has some bearing on it. When Solomon built the temple, there were two cherubim fashioned from olive trees to guard the entrance to the Holy of Holies. They were very large. They reached from the floor of the holy place to the ceiling. Their one cherubim's wing touched one wall and reached to the middle. The other cherubim's wing started from the tip of the first cherubim's wing and stretched to the other wall. So these are very prominent features in the holy place, guarding the veil to the Holy of Holies. And some regard these witnesses as non human, like the Old and the New Testaments or the Law and the Prophets. Some have viewed them as two volcanoes, which I found particularly amusing and couldn't find a lot to substantiate. Um, but here we have these two witnesses that are designed to guard promises and the goodness and the proclamations of God. And so, as two olive trees and two candlesticks, others see them as two humans, like Moses and Elijah, Moses and Enoch. Some have seen them as various others. Some have even seen one of them as John the Baptist. The likelihood is that they are indeed humans. There's nothing really in the text to substantiate them being anything other than human. There is no real hint there that they are symbolic of two other things. Uh, I suppose we could draw some comparisons to them, but at the end of the day, I think we still have to acknowledge that these are two human beings walking on the earth. Um, there are some arguments. The things like stopping the heavens, calling fire down from heaven, sound a lot like Elijah. On the other hand, there are plagues that are brought on that are reminiscent of Moses. So there is this feeling that they could be them. However, Moses and Elijah already glorified. Seems unlikely God would put them back into a human form and send them back to the earth. As far as Enoch, we don't know a lot about him. It would certainly fulfill the scripture that says it is appointed unto man once to die, and after that the judgment, since Enoch has not died, but Elijah has not died either. Both of them were translated. One walked with God and was not because God took him. The other went up in a flaming chariot in the sight of his successor, prophet Elisha. But more than likely, they are simply two people who are not yet named. They are two people who will be stood up at that moment for that time. So, when is their ministry? Well, we're told that they will minister for 1,260 days. These phrases are used in different ways in Daniel and Revelation. They are listed as weeks of years. They are listed in terms of the half of the tribulation. Daniel talks about the midst of the week. They are also talked about as 1,260 days, and given that the Jews generally used a roughly 30-day calendar in that time, that would be half of a year. Um, they are 3.5 years, I mean. And then, of course, it also is listed as a times and a half, or one plus two plus a half, 3.5. So at any rate, 3.5 years. And when we're dealing with the tribulation, it generally is thought to be separated out into the first half, which is the rise of the beast, and things are starting to roll. The second half are the judgments of God being poured out. Now, those aren't the other only things going on. Obviously, there's the rapture of the church to be just immediately preceding the revelation. There is the return of Christ immediately following the tribulation, and so there are some things there that factor in. But here we go. We're going to try to figure out a little bit about what we could say about where they're going to fall out. It's unlikely that the 1,260 days are carved out in the middle of the tribulation period, because that doesn't fit with anything else the scripture has to say about the midst of the week, or a half year, a half of the tribulation, 3.5 years, times and a half, and so forth. Uh, but if they're at the beginning, then that means the beast will have come to full power at the midst of the tribulation, when he really is rolling, because he's made a covenant with the Jews in the first half, and so he's being somewhat of a nice guy. But by the middle of the tribulation, he's revealing his true colors. So if they're at the beginning, the beast will have just revealed himself in what he really is and who he really is about the time they're killed, which would make sense because they prophesied nobody could stop them, and all of a sudden the beast is able to overcome them and kill them at the end of their ministry. Um, However, if they're at the end of the tribulation, they will certainly be a thorn in the flesh for the beast during his heyday while the judgments are falling. And they will, in fact, be battling the beast for 3.5 years before he triumphs over them. So until God is ready, they will not go away. In fact, it could very well be these two witnesses will be part of the way that God protects the chosen of Israel during the tribulation period, besides hiding them uh, in the wilderness. Their role in the first half would seem to be warning those who might be saved. If their ministry is in the second half, it would probably be more of a prophecy against the beast, standing directly up against him, not as much proclaiming salvation as proclaiming negatives against the beast. They would become his problem, so to speak. What is the purpose of the witnesses? Well, the message of the witness is really not told. It's just said they will prophesy for 1,260 days. But their purpose is certainly to proclaim the message that God has given them at whatever point they've come for the end time people at that time. Their message will probably be from the Bible if they're in the first half, because they will be proclaiming the gospel. If it's in the second half of the tribulation, it'll likely be a fresh word for that generation, something to give them hope, give them help, and also to battle against the beast. And certainly the miracles, the plagues, the calling down of fire from heaven kind of fit with the judgments that are going on at that time, and seem like perhaps they could be involved somehow. Uh, and given their power and gifts, these witnesses will add to the revelation of God as the Old Testament prophets did. And so God is continually being revealed from Genesis to Revelation. It would seem natural that as a dispensation or a time is ending, that he would certainly start to give out a fresh revelation. The two witnesses will most likely be found in the last half of the tribulation. It just seems more sensible that if they're going to be calling down plagues upon people, if they're going to be calling down fire, if they're going to be battling against the beast, that it would seem that it would likely be in that second half. But if that's the case, a part of the message may be to give hope to Israelites, as we've already mentioned, being protected from the beast by the Lord. And the witness will stand until their ministry is complete and the return of Christ is imminent. Daniel leaves a little room between the end of the tribulation period and the return of Christ is hinted at. and could very well be that that gives time for these witnesses to die, lay in the street for 3 days, be resurrected and called up to heaven, which is what the text says happens. When they die, the people give out gifts. They're so glad they're gone. When they get resurrected and they ascend into heaven, then many people become fearful of the Lord, which would fit because at the end times, the Bible is very clear that people will begin to call for rocks and mountains and caves to fall on them and hide them or to kill them before the Lord gets to them when they see Jesus returning. And so that message of the prophets would still have been very fresh on their minds at that point. At any rate, it's expected the beast and the false prophet uh, will blame the witnesses for all the judgments that God is pouring out on the earth. Every dictator needs a cause for the society's problems that they can blame. That's one of the ways they keep their power is by blaming everything wrong on somebody else. And so certainly they would be a good foil, a good scapegoat for the beast during that time. When the witnesses are resurrected and ascended to heaven, then as I have already said, many will become fearful of God. Those who have not accepted the mark of the beast, it may give them the fortitude, the gumption, if you will, to resist the beast for that last few steps to the end by not taking the mark and being prepared to reach God. We know that natural people will survive the tribulation period without the mark of the beast, because there will be those that are alive during the millennial reign of Christ that will multiply and replenish the earth with fresh people, and then they will be tempted at the end of the millennial reign when the devil is released from the bottomless pit. Uh, Enough said about that. Kind of wraps it up. These two witnesses are certainly prominent. They are very controversial and they will serve a wonderful purpose. And they do highlight for us that our life is kept in God when we have fulfilled until we have fulfilled what God has put us here for. God will preserve us just as He does the three witnesses, or the two witnesses. I'm sorry. Anyway, thank you very much. That concludes the recording and records presentation. Thank you.